Hey, this is Melisha, and I want to welcome you to Flipped Coding. So, this is the place people come to learn web development after they've already gone through the free tutorials online, but they still have questions or they want some personal mentorship and need some guidance in starting the job application process. So, with that being said, let's jump right into today's topic. We're going to go over 10 questions you should really ask at the end of an interview. So, I'm going to give you the 10 questions and I'll give you a couple of reasons why I usually ask them. So, the first set of questions: how is project management handled? The main reason you want to know this is so you know who is responsible for reporting to the client. You want to know who is responsible for making sure the project comes together on time, and you want to know that you have someone as a resource to go to when you have questions about the project. Then you also really need to know how many projects you can expect to work on in a month. So if you work at a company that has clients, that means you're doing some kind of consulting work, right? So you could be expected to work on 3 to 5 projects in a month if they have that much work that needs to be done. And if that's not your style, you really need to know that ahead of time. Or if you're a person who likes to jump around on multiple projects, you need to know if the company you're talking to just has 1 or 2 projects and if you'll get siloed onto one of those projects. So, a really important thing you need to know is the process for managing the code. Do they use something like Git? Do they have pull requests in place? Do you have to commit stuff by a certain time? It's things like that you're trying to find out when you ask what's the process for managing the code. So you'll also really want to know how long the typical sprints are. So some companies, they run about a week or two, but other places use epics and that could last a month or two. You really want to have a good idea of the length of time you'll have between deadlines, especially if you like to work fast paced, or maybe you want to work slower paced, or maybe you like to switch it up. So that's why you'll ask about how long the sprints are. The next thing you really want to know is how many developers are you going to work with? Is it just going to be you and your boss? Is it going to be you and a team of 20 other developers? It's just good to have an idea of how many people are going to be working on the code, how many people you'll have to work with, and it'll give you an idea of what to expect from, I guess, the code quality, or a little bit more about what the culture will be like at that company. And then we're starting to get into some of the other questions. So, do you get time to learn on the job? As a web developer, you probably already know how much we have to learn, but having a company that values you learning is a really big benefit when it comes to your web development career. If they're willing to invest an hour or two a week on you to just do some online classes, that really makes a difference. So make sure you know if you'll have time to learn new things while you're on the job. Kind of like with a typical sprint, you want to know how long are projects. So is the project going to go through the whole year? Is it going to last for 3 months? Is it really long term and is something that is just going to go until the company either dies or gets sold or whatever happens? So you want to know how long a project normally is, because it'll give you an idea of why they do the sprint timings a certain way, or just kind of an idea of how, not rushed, but how fast you'll be moving on the project. And most web developers don't really do off-site travel, but if you are in a company where there's a chance you might travel, you might want to know, just, future reference type stuff. If you need to go to the city that's an hour away once a week, you might want to know that before you accept the job. So Ask about any off-site travel requirements. Then you really want to know how vacation days are handled. Not so much how many vacation days you get, but when you put in a request to take days off, how does that process work? Do you have a system that you just block off certain days? Do you have to tell your boss and the developers you're working with? Just kind of what's the process behind taking days off? And a little bit of a segue into the next question. Are there any emergency processes in place? It never fails that when you go on vacation, the project that you're working on has some kind of catastrophic meltdown. It's, it's the chaos of the universe, I guess. But you want to make sure that you aren't the only person in the company that knows how the project works. And if that means they do cross training while you're working on a project, or they have a backup ready at all times, or even if the database goes down, they have some system in place to take care of that without you being there, or just in place, period. You'd be surprised by how many companies get caught off guard by these types of emergencies. So make sure you know ahead of time if there's a system in place, or if something goes wrong, you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So these are the top 10 questions I usually ask in interviews. Maybe not all 10 at once, but you can kind of fill out a company and pick and choose which questions are more relevant. So always ask questions at the end of an interview. When they ask you if you have any questions, do not just sit there. You should have at least 2 to 5 questions that you're ready to ask them without hesitation. It shows that you're really serious about this job and that you've spent some time thinking about it and researching it. Plus, it gives you information that you really need to know. If you find out you're the only person responsible for a project, like you alone, there's no one else who knows how that project works, that's going to make taking vacation days a lot harder than you would think. So little stuff like that. Make sure you're asking the questions that really have an effect on you. If you like a lower stress environment, you might not want to go to a place that has week-long sprints, because that's usually faster paced, a little higher stress type environment. So ask the questions that really matter to you and your life. So with that being said, if you need help finding a new web developer job, so you need help with your resume getting reviewed, or your cover letter having the right information on it, or even finding the right websites to actually apply for jobs, I can help you with that over at flippedcoding.com. Just go sign up for my class. You'll learn all of the technology stacks. You'll learn how to find a job. You'll learn stuff that nobody else teaches online, but every job expects you to know, like how to use the Chrome developer tools, things like that. So go to flippedcoding.com, sign up for my class, and I'll start being your new mentor.